Hello dear students, welcome to all of you. This is the third lecture of Introduction to Language Learning. Well, in this lecture, we'll discuss about the history of writing and speech versus writing. In the second segment, speech versus writing, we'll also differentiate the speech and writing. We'll also try to find out some similarities between speech and writing. Well, let's start. Who invented the first system of writing? And there are so many other questions like what did they look like, how they have changed over time. Well, writing basically invented more than 6,000 years ago, and it changed from time to time. Well, the question came into our mind that what came first? Long before writing, humans were talking to each other, and for thousands of years ideas and information were passed down through the spoken word and storytelling. Simple drawings of animals have been found, carved or painted onto cave walls that are over 30,000 years old. But the real purpose of these drawings simply isn't known. It was much later that real systems of writing were created. Writing seems to have been invented in different parts of the world at more or less the same time. Well, here are some examples of the cave paintings. You can see over here a cave engraving of an antelope from Algeria, and the second example is the second instance that you can see from the France. Here are some other images that you can see on the screen. These are the clay envelopes in which they put the currency of that time. Well, here is another image. You can see over here bulla envelope within 17 plain tokens inside, and these were from 3700 to 3200 BC. Well, pictographs of writing before 4000 BCE. You can see over here these are the pictures of the different tokens of the currency at that time. Well, writing as inventory. The earliest writing seems to have been to keep a record of property, how many animals you had, how much land or how many myers of grain your neighbors owed you. Counting tokens made of clay were used of this purpose to trade around 6,000 years ago. For example, a token with the shape of coin and with a cross carved on it indicated a sheep. A cone-shaped token meant a measure of corn. An egg-shaped indicated a flask of oil, etc. For 20 sheep, people needed to use 20 sheep tokens. It means that the someone who wants to buy 10 sheep, then definitely he or she uses to give him or her that amount. Well, clay trading tokens. Later, these tokens became smaller, more like today's coin, and the head had a symbol on them to show which animal or item they represented. Number systems developed so that a single coin could represent 10 or 20 of that object. You can see over here a lot of the coins that at that time they were used for different purposes. Well, now we are going to start the history. Earliest writing in Sumer. Historians agree that one of the first groups of the people to start real writing and not simply cave pictures were the Sumerians. Sumer was an ancient civilization based in modern-day Iraq and part of the area once known as Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia means between rivers. You can see the two rivers on the map in blue lines. The Sumerians and writing. The Sumerians were the first people to inhabit the area of Iraq over 6,000 years ago. They made great progress with writing. They kept records of taxes. They wrote down laws. They also worked out a calendar. They divided the day into 24 hours and an hour into 60 minutes. Sumerian writing, pictograph. Sumerian writing began about 5,000 years ago as pictographs that represented what they were. The pictures were carved into clay tablets, then baked in the oven. Well, the next one is cuneiform. Cuneiform, basically this is the style of writing. Eventually the pictographs were simplified as straight lines made using a wedge-shaped stick called a stylus. This early writing is called cuneiform. The word comes from the Latin word for wedge. Wedge means then that it's in a shape of a leaf. Look at the tip of the stylus. Here are some examples of Sumerian word signs that you can see over here. The wedge-tipped stylus device as well, from which they used to carve each and everything on the coin. Well, cuneiform example. What do you think it says? Cuneiform writing spread across the ancient Middle East. The straight wedges were used, carved into it. How do you think the circular holes were made? Basically, circular holes were made to show or to indicate the value of the currency. Well, the evaluation of writing tablet that were used in the ancient time and that is used in modern time. Evaluation of cuneiform. You can see over here earliest writing in Egypt. Same is the case, just like the Sumerians, same, and the Egypt were also used currency, but the way of using currency is different from Sumerians. At around the same time as Egyptians were developed their own system of writing, and this is called hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics. The Egyptians didn't write on clay tablets but used papyrus, an ancient paper made from the papyrus grass plant. Papyrus paper rolled into scrolls. Hieroglyphics, basically these are used for different purposes. Many hieroglyphics are also pictograms, often drawn sideways. The word hiero means sacred and glyphs means carved or engraved. For the Egyptians, writing was something sacred and divine. The oldest hieroglyphics are thought to be about 6,100 years old. Some hieroglyphics represented a complete word, but many others stood for syllables. You can see over here the hieroglyphics pictographs on this paper. They had even more symbols than the Sumerians did, as many as 5,000 years ago. The Egyptians used the hieroglyphics for thousands of years. Here is the example of hieroglyphics. You can see over here, writing was time consuming, and in both Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was an activity reserved for professional people called scribes. They were highly trained, important people. What's new over there? No walls used by Egyptians. According to the expert, the Egyptians didn't include vowel when they wrote. This makes it very difficult for us today to decipher how to pronounce many words. For example, it would be very difficult to read. In this sentence, there is no use of vowel sound. Here are different categories of signs in early writing: pictographs, signs, logograms, and phonograms. Pictograms show the different signs by pictures, made of picture, and logogram, these are showing the different logos. Sign represent the words, and phonograms, these shows the different syllables by different sounds. Here are some pictographs. You can see over here, these are the logograms, word signs, and these are the syllables used by Sumerians. Well, next one is Phoenician alphabets. The next big change in writing came nearly 2,000 years later, around 300 years ago. At that time, people called the Phoenicians lived on the eastern coast of Mediterranean Sea, where Israel is today. Phoenicians sailed all over the Mediterranean, buying and selling things. They needed an easy way to keep record of what they bought and sold, so they invented their own writing system. Other ancient writing system is relating to China and Mexico. In China, it's started from Shang Dynasty, and Mexico, it's over more than 2,700 years, and it relates to Mayas. Today's picture still important, and these shows different purposes that we can see over here. Pictures for sign are still used. Modern day pictograms you can see over here, which are used in social media. Writing still developed. Had a great time. Thanks for your present. See you tomorrow. It's SMS language, but in ancient time, if we see with the Egyptian, they also use such type of language. What are the emotions that we can create from these pictures? Well, here are some examples of grammatical texts of old Babylon. Well, now the second segment is spoken versus writing. Well, language basically it starts from speaking and then writing. There are different aspects of written language and the spoken language. Written language is planned, organized, and transactional. On the other hand, spoken is unplanned, less structured, and interactive. We can also see that in this word. Here is the some facts and figures you can see over here. The characteristics of spoken language. That spoken language basically it relates to repeating. We can create the gestures, body language, and intonation, stress, rhythm, pausing, and on the other hand we can create vocabulary, grammar, intonation, variation, loudness. These are the characteristics of spoken language. On the other hand, the characteristics of written language are final draft we just create while writing, density of content, grammar, social rules, and punctuation. There are some similarities of spoken and written languages. We can see over here there are some abstract thing genres and reflect changes in society and language, variation culture to culture we can also see over there. Well, register is basically professional language, and mode is the medium, which medium and which channel we are going to speak. Field is basically relating to a subject matter, and the tenor means who is speaking, and all these things, all these content basically relating to spoken and writing. And if we observe the last three these are specifically related to spoken. For example, mode, channel, either it's speaking or writing, and the other hand content, and the tenor mean who is speaking, who is speaking, doctor, lawyer, and someone else. Well, spoken words are the symbols of mental experience, and written words are the symbols of spoken words. Well, here is the example of spoken and the written one. That spoken is basically reception, and the written is the production. You can see over here. Here are some differences of spoken and written language. You can see over here. Writing is usually permanent, and spoken definitely it's not a permanent. You can just speak and change your wording. On the other hand, written text can communicate across time, space, and speech is usually used for immediate feedback. And writers can make use of punctuation. On the other hand, in speech we don't need to use punctuation. Some grammatical constructions are only used in writing, but in speech or in spoken language we don't need such type of grammar, specifically formal grammar or universal grammar, because in speech we mostly use informal language. Well, here are some main differences. Speech is relating to sounds, and writing relates to letters. On the other hand, it's permanency and redundancy, that formality and function, vocabulary and sentences, strategies, interaction, and with the listener and the speaker. Sound patterns in spoken. In spoken we need the sound pattern. On the other hand, in written language we don't need the sound patterns. Well, spoken problems begin in the childhood. Kids of spoken language problems, and problems effect solution. We can find out the solutions as well. Well, here is the conclusion. We treat the written and the spoken language as equal importance. Both of them are the part of the language. Thank you.